Hey everybody, welcome back. And today's topic is the Women of the Movement series from ABC, as well as Let Them See, which was about Emmett Till and his mother and how it dealt with the death of Emmett Till. And didn't start, but actually helped the civil rights movement in a lot of ways. Now, for a lot of people, this might have been the first time they heard of Emmett Till at all and the story for him. For me, it wasn't. The first time I'd actually heard of Emmett Till, though, wasn't in school, wasn't in any normal way. It was actually through a horror movie called Tales from the Hood 2. And I find it sad that it took a horror movie to bring up the topic of civil rights in that way and show it. And show a person I had never heard of that was so important to the civil rights in that way. Emmett Till, in his story, was a boy from Chicago, Illinois. He goes down for the summer with his family. He goes down to Mississippi for the summer in the 50s. Personally, I think this is crazy in general that people know you don't want to go down to the South if you're of a certain skin color in the 50s to Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama. Yes, there were people of African American descent, that lived there already, and their lives generally were hell. Emmett lived in Chicago. Emmett lived in a part of the country where things were good. Everybody was happy. Okay, happy might be an exaggeration there. They were more accepting of black and white being in the same area without it being without as big a problem. In the South, they still had what was known as the Jim Crow laws. If you want Jim Crow, look it up in your books. Look it up in general. Dumbo even makes mention of Jim Crow and how bad it was. But anyways, back to the story here. Emmett was a kid who supposedly, as the story goes, whistles at a white woman, and this, according to Southern law, warrants him a death sentence. Because people came, took him in the middle of the night, and beat him to the point that he was unrecognizable by most means, and then dumped him in a river. And his mother only recognizes him, according to the series, because of a ring that her husband who is known to be abusive, wore. And her husband was suspected of some criminal activity, of some unsavory activity overseas, which is where he died, which is how they got the ring in the first place. Emmett, however, by almost everybody's knowledge, even a lot of white people claimed, was a nice boy, didn't do anything wrong, was basically your best friend. And they cut him, and they cut this kid down for listening at a woman of a different race. Now, if this had been reversed, and a white man had done this to to a black woman, nobody would have probably thought anything about it. Actually, they probably would have thought it was a comedy act. Or something stupid. And there have been some offhand racist comment made. And nobody would have thought anything more of it. But because it was a black male doing it to a white woman, oh, it was a big deal. In the show, it exaggerates a great details because of drama, but it keeps a lot of the details the same, such as him getting beaten, him getting taken in the middle of the night, the court trial being basically a show. Because it's Mississippi, 1950s, and we got the good old boys down there versus what some consider to be some black kid dead. And they basically in the show, during the trial, they try to vilify this kid in order to justify his death. But it's actually not done. If anything, they actually make Emmett look more innocent, in my view. Whereas our white boys, what also another thing that makes it interesting is in the show, if you watch it, and everything they got right was about some of the characters in it. About how Emmett's mother was so protective of him because of, one, the way he was born, but also the fact that with Emmett himself, not with Emmett, but with the trial, the suspects who were on trial during it for killing Emmett, one of them was a store owner whose wife was the woman Emmett was supposed to have whistled at. He was known to, how's the proper way to phrase this? Have a strong hand when he felt like it or when he was drunk. And the brother, who was also on trial, was known to be just as messed up. In the show, they have it that the brother says that they can't let this go because it would make a bad example for the future. And it would state that, basically, he states that if they let this go, it would allow for another black person to make a pass at a white woman down the line, or much more could happen, such as the interracial relationships that we see today. So again, they end up taking this boy in the middle of the night, beat him to death, and then dump him. And then have a clear conscience about it, apparently. And when the trial comes, the wife and the wife slash sister here of the wife of the store owner slash sister of the other guy on trial actually states that Emmett grabbed her by the arm in this old time Dollar General store, basically. For those of you who might be too young to remember this, go to small places. I'm going to give you an example. Cave and Rock, Illinois has a good example of a store like this. There was a place in Tellico Plains, Tennessee, that had an example of a store like this. But I say a Dollar General store now because it's a general term for it, not the actual Dollar General. But anyways, there was about this much distance between the register and the back wall. According to this woman's testimony, Emmett grabs her hand, and when she pulls away, he goes across the counter, and him and her both are standing in this area with him pulling her close and holding her suggestively, stating that he's had white women before. The only problem with this is, which even the courts recognized and knew she was lying about. Now, they don't say that he might have done the holding her suggestively thing as an exaggeration. It's the space where he grabbed her. There's no way he could have gotten behind the register with her and held her in that suggestive way with it being that much of a contained space. There's not enough room, no matter how they turn. Sorry. Sorry, slight illness. Anyways, like I was saying, there was not enough room to actually have grabbed her and been back there with her. Now, he might have said those things according to what she said, though later on, she supposedly recants. 4 years later, she supposedly recants that testimony. And then many years down the line, it's supposedly said that that she said it never happened that way. And that she was told to say it. Much like in the movie. Much like in this little mini-series. Now, with the "now let the people see," that was taken from the diary itself, as well as personal interviews of people who knew Emmett. And they actually focused on the idea that of what they knew and the actual personal knowledge of what happened, as well as the diary entries from Mrs. Till herself for what she wrote. And Mrs. Till would go on in life to become a school teacher and educate people who would actually move in such steps of civil rights. Like her personal area was in public speaking, basically. She taught children. She helped children with speaking, and a lot of them learned to speak by listening to Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and other civil rights activists. Oh, it gave them a voice. Well, what they probably didn't realize is that if it hadn't been for Emmett Till's death, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King probably wouldn't have been as strong as they were. I'm not denying that they were strong and they were great on their own, but Emmett Till's death really helped in that situation. Really helped their causes down the line. Because with Emmett, he was a black kid that was killed for no reason, essentially. And then Rosa Parks came along. She got arrested. For what? Because she refused to give up a seat to a white person. I hate to tell y'all, as much as I like the idea of sitting on a bus, and I've done this, I've actually given up my seat. Because sometimes the seat isn't worth it. Other times, yes, I would like to have a seat given up to me. But her reasoning for for not giving up that seat was simply because it was the law said so. The law demanded back then. Anytime a white person wanted to have a seat, if there wasn't an available one, a black person automatically had to give up theirs. And Rosa refused. So she got arrested. Martin Luther King, everybody knows. Malcolm X, everybody knows. There were different civil rights activists through the times that mattered. And a number of them can be traced back to Emmett Till. Even Rosa stated in a speech, same as Martin Luther King Jr., talked about Emmett Till in their speeches that they gave. Not in all their speeches, but in one or two that were known. Now, like I said, the first time I personally had heard of Emmett Till was the movie Tales from the Hood 2. And that is sad because that movie didn't come out till the 2000s. And I'm talking like 2010s. But yeah, schools taught civil rights movements since at least the 90s. And you hear about Martin Luther King because there's a holiday for him. You hear about Malcolm X because even though he was a more active version, he saw equal rights like Martin Luther King did. You hear about Rosa Parks because she got arrested. But in the South, where I lived, Emmett Till was something that I didn't hear about. And that's messed up because that, to me, would have taught a civil right. I mean, that would have been a great civil rights a civil rights teaching moment. It would also have been a great conversation piece to have on, was this right to do? I mean, it'd been a great conversation on where, on the times and other things about it. But no, that one gets left out. I say throw Emmett Till into the history books as well. Not just, oh, hey, let's toss him out for a moment and let people hear about it finally. No, you put him in the history books along with Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and the rest. Because him and his mother did a great thing. Emmett wasn't afraid, and his mother proved you can't get away with what you did. And you can't just expect everybody to play dead just because you're of a certain race. When she found out her son was dead, yeah, she wanted to see the body. When she saw how bad it was, she told him, put it on display because she wanted people to see what happened to the child. Then she went to the murder trial. Saw the dog and pony show that it was. Where, oh, they killed, but we can't do anything about it. I mean, but we're not going to do anything about it. Yeah. The only thing I didn't like about the Women of the Movement thing is that when it was doing the credits and it told about Mrs. Till, it told about um, the white girl that Emmett supposedly was, I mean, the white girl that Emmett whistled at, and it told about those two. It didn't mention what happened to the killers, even though it showed them. It didn't say what happened to them. Me personally, I kind of hope they got beaten to death, or that Mr. Stronghang got into a fight with himself, got into a certain fight, didn't exactly come out of it well. Now, as for the brother, my vote is he probably got caught on something else and got arrested eventually. If he didn't live to old age and die quickly. Because the show made it look like he drank a lot, so he probably got liver. I mean, so he probably got liver poisoning and died. Like a traditional alcoholic. But the one who had the strong hand, I'm kind of voting he ran into a fight he couldn't win. And thought he could. Just so he would know the pain he caused in a minor element. Anyways, like I said, with the white woman, she remarried eventually. And one of the children or grandchildren, something like that down the line, came forward and stated that she had told him that all that stuff she had said during the trial was a lie and that none of it about Emmett was true. But later, when the cops came to ask about it, suddenly there was a recant and nobody remembered it being said. My guess, because if I remember correctly, under law, murder doesn't run out. It doesn't have a time limit. So that boy's death, she would have been connected with. Which means she would have been sent to jail even at an old age. If she was still alive. Um, now, as for, now, like I said, with Mrs. Till herself, according to the way the series showed it, she went to school, ended up becoming a school teacher, helping with public speaking, and a lot of the students started speaking out like activists, like Martin Luther King Jr. did. And she watched the world become the great place that it was. And according to the show, the time she had gotten towards the end of her life, she believed her son had died. I mean, she'd come to believe that her son had died for a reason. I'm sorry, I might have that wrong. She's not dead yet. But actually, hold on a second. Sorry, I was just fact checking real quick to make sure I did have it right. She did die in 2003. And by the time that time rolled around, she had come to believe that her son, due to all the civil rights activism that had gone on over time afterwards, she believed her son had come to die for a good reason, to help the cause of equality, of civil rights, rather than dying for no reason at all. At least according to the miniseries version. As for the book, as for the journal entries, I'm not sure. During the show, they didn't actually give that part of it. But still, I don't blame her for being angry. Her son got murdered for something stupid, and she had every right to want justice, and then watched as the world basically made fun of it and found ways around it. The KKK even got involved in this trial and really had nothing to do with them. The reason why they got involved, at least according to the miniseries, as for the real reason they got involved, no one, it didn't ever say. Though it did say they were there during the trial. But during the miniseries version, the reason why the Triple K got involved is because they believed that the true woman was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, fair-skinned Southern belle. Does this sound familiar? The Germans believed in the Superman that the Scandinavians spoke of. Who was what? Oh yeah, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, fair-skinned, and super strength. That did not look good. That does not look good to me when they believe this. But yet they believed that if an African American, I'm going to say African American because this did take place in America, spoke to her, was allowed to talk to a white woman, he would infect her. That was actually their term, infect. And before long, they would want to mate with them and mix. And the child would no longer be pure and safe. Because it was a mixed child. Again, gender and idiocy of the 50s. And theology. You know, I've often questioned the Bible about this. It refers to the mark of Cain. Okay, everybody thinks. Okay, there was a lot of people who believed that when God made Adam and Eve, it was white people. And when he put the mark of Cain on Cain for murdering his brother, it made him black. What if that's not what happened? What if the mark of Cain actually turned him white? It took the color away as a punishment. Well, anyways, skip over that. That I might say for another moment. Um. Anyways, let's say it was a dog and pony show put on for the public because they knew reporters and they knew reporters as well as TV was watching this trial, and then found out, oh hey, these guys are free, only for them to later get busted for something else, probably. Like I said, but I'm not saying that's what happened. But with with one of them's wife remarried, but with the one guy's wife remarrying, that states that he either died or that somehow she got a divorce somewhere down the line. And getting a divorce in itself, in the 60s and 70s especially, means, well, I'm sorry, between the 50s and the 70s, especially, would have been considered sinful. I mean, hell, in the 80s and 90s, a woman who worked, having a career, however you want to phrase it, rather than being at home, was still frowned upon. So, yeah. The fact that this woman got remarried, really not going to look well. Even if she didn't work, but stayed at home. Now, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought and trying to work it back in at the same time. Anyways, I think Emmett Till's story ought to be told in history books as a part of not just a one-off deal, but Black History Month whenever it comes around. Because we teach Martin Luther King because of the Civil Rights Movement. We teach Malcolm X even. We teach Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison. We teach about all these people who are famous for something they did. But yet, Emmett Till gets left out because why? He whistled at a white woman, so he got beat to death? And that's considered fair? Come on, people. Put him in your history books as well and teach it. And also, don't let the people's skin color fool you. Get to know them first, because otherwise, you're just as bad as the people that took Emmett Till and killed him. You're just killing society, is all. If you're judging on skin color. Have a good one.